of the Child Advocacy Center of Warren County.
Any discussion? Seeing none, go to the next one.
The second resolution is approving amendment number 2 to the contract with Strand Associates Incorporated for the State Route 122 Robinson Vale Intersection Improvement Project.
Is that amendment 1 or number 2?
It's amendment number 1.
Okay, thank you.
Without objection, we'll move to the next one.
Approving addendum to the Memorandum of Understanding with Kings Local School District on behalf of the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, without objection, we'll go to the next one.
Issuing a request for proposals for the Emergency Communications Center voice, radio, and screen recording system replacement project.
Discussion? Seeing none. Next.
And the final resolution is authorizing the partial waiver of water and sewer charges for customers that participate in semi-annual lead and copper sampling and testing for the Warren County Public Water System.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve all those resolutions.
So moved.
Yes.
And yes. And next on the agenda, we have our friends at CCAO who are here. And I'm super excited about this after many years. I'm very excited to see you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and good morning to all of you. Do I need to talk directly into this?
No,
Okay.
the mic's,
I don't think the mic is working.
oh, okay. So yes, you do. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. All right. The County Commissioners Association of Ohio, your association, established the Research and Educational Foundation in 1992.
Introduce yourself,
Oh,
please,
sure.
for us.
Steve Caraway. I'm Steve Caraway. I'm Managing Director of Enterprise and Retirement Services at the association. And we
And a
launched.
former colleague of ours.
I am a former, yes. Had a nice drive over from Adams County this morning. It was very nice and uneventful. Just several years ago, the foundation launched the Ohio County Scholarship Program. And the scholarship, we award 5 $2,000 scholarships per year. And I'm pleased to tell you this morning that one of your constituents, by the name of Samantha Mason, has been selected by your colleagues from throughout the state as the Southwest Ohio recipient of this scholarship. The scholarship is weighted heavily on activities, achievements, community service, and also the essay. This young lady here today, and if I could get Samantha to come on up, she has been really busy with extracurricular activities, including Color Guard, Spirit Squad, the Pledge Team, Yearbook, Improv Club, Select Choir, National Honor Society Book Club, Community Theater, and National Girls Ministry. I only read a few of the items, and her list of awards and achievements certainly is about a quarter of the page. And I believe I provided a copy of the application to you. So again, as I talked about the essay being a major part of the scoring process for this scholarship, and the theme this year was how county governments in Ohio are improving the lives of our fellow citizens. And if I may, Commissioners, I would like to read just a short part of Samantha's essay. It says, "My experiences during my family's struggling years have shown me that county governments have a real and meaningful impact on people's lives. They help build strong communities and provide support to those who need it. Warren County's commitment to improving the lives of its citizens have given me direction and motivation to give back into the future what it gave me." So it is my pleasure to present to you the 2026 Southwest Ohio County Scholarship recipient, Samantha Mason.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for this opportunity today to receive this scholarship. I am very, very grateful for this honor. And first of all, I would like to thank my parents for always supporting me and pushing me to work my hardest they were never the type of parents who punish for getting bad grades or even reward for getting good grades. They simply just wanted me to pursue the goals that I had and to aim high and achieve great things. And I'm very grateful for everything that they've done for me and everything that they've led me in. And I would like to thank you all, and I would like to thank Steve Caraway for this honor. It has been a wonderful experience to grow up here in Ohio, and just the communities here are incredible, and the way that we support each other and the way that Warren County has supported me through me and my family, through any of our struggling times, through things like local food shelters, or something else that I really appreciate is the way that we support our veterans, which is something that I am really passionate about because I am going to Cedarville in the fall for pre-med biology. And
Say Cedarville?
Cedarville University,
Cedarville,
yes.
great.
I'm going for pre-med biology with aspirations of becoming a dentist in the United States Air Force. And I'll also be enrolling in Cedarville's Air Force ROTC program through Wright State in order to achieve those goals. And thank you so much for helping me to just get one step of the way closer. Thank you.
That's excellent. Your essay was really moving, and I loved hearing your story. And here, we know here that county government is important, but we don't often get to see people who are impacted by it share their stories with us. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for choosing public service. The purpose of this scholarship is to encourage more people to go in, young people to go into public service. And I've been trying to blackmail Steve since we started this scholarship to get someone from Warren County to win, and there was no blackmail to be had.
I was so happy.
He was tired of hearing from me on board meetings, but that sounds like a really great set of goals for yourself, and I wish you much success.
Where did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from Little Miami High School.
Great.
Awesome. You made the comment of aiming high, which I think maybe I've heard before from the U.S. Air Force, which is just so awesome. And what's really interesting and cool about your story is, obviously, we all have problems. Everybody faces adversity in their life, but instead of just allowing that to define you, you found a way to overcome that, which is what it's all about, of being an American, really. So I appreciate your service. My daughter's active duty right now in the U.S. Navy, so I wish you a long and prosperous career.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're gonna do the presentation of the big check, but before we do that, we also, from the board here, have a proclamation recognizing your strong scholarship and leadership and achievement. And so I won't read it. I'll allow you to be able to read it on your own. But at the end of the day, the important part for you and your family is that we are recognizing and proclaiming July 28th, 2026 of Samantha Mason Day here in Warren County. So you can now frame this and say, I had an entire day here in Warren County.
So cool, thank you.
You're welcome, and we think you're pretty cool too. So, should we come down in front and get a picture with the big old check and proclamation? Yeah, we'll come right here in front. Samantha, we'll be right in front of you. You want to do this first? Step to the side? No, Steve, and we'll do the big check.
McMahon Publishers.
Yes. Congratulations on you too.
I've got 3 cameras, so, and my kids.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
That is one big check.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll go through the drive-through.
But hopefully Steve has something better.
Yes, she has my card.
Okay.
The real deal.
Okay,
Awesome,
great.
good luck to you guys.
Yeah, congratulations. Thank you for being here.
My dad was in.
I love it, I love it. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, you should be. Did you?
Yeah, it's not done. Almost done.
I just wanted to make sure before congratulations. Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, so before we call Mr. Kubin up here, oh, thanks Steve for being here, appreciate it. Thank you to all our CCAO colleagues for investing in this and playing a lot of hot golf in the summer to be able to support that. At any rate, good morning, Treasurer.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Is this on?
On behalf of the Investment Advisory Board.
Indeed. Good morning. Hard to follow that act, so I'll be brief, so you can get on to.
I don't think you're
important
gonna get me to
business.
cry.
No, did you cry?
A little bit.
Okay. Anyway, not much really exciting to report here for our Investment Advisory Committee meeting. That's right. Indeed, indeed. Right now, and I think you've received the reports probably a couple weeks ago, but we're sitting just under $360 million in our surplus funds invested. That was at June 30, 26, which is really where it has been all year. That's pretty much a good measure of what the true core surplus funds are right now for the county. I would anticipate that increasing to about $370 million by the end of the year with tax collections, the county's portion of that will will remain in the account after we disperse all the funds to the various jurisdictions. Currently, we're sitting with funds at Star Ohio, which is basically our liquid assets available for the ebbs and flows of our budget, and in particular this time of year when we're in collection, funds sit in that account for a period of time before we're able to disperse those funds out to the various jurisdictions. So right now, that's sitting at about $80 million, getting about 3.82% interest right now at that, which, interestingly enough, is pretty close to now what our yield to maturity is, overall weighted average yield to maturity for our core investments, which is something we have not seen in a number of years, but we've been able to, over the last several years, move out of some low interest rate investments into some better paying investments. And now, because the market has kind of stabilized right around that 4% rate for the securities that we're able to invest in, that's about where we are, and pretty much where we'll likely be for really the foreseeable future. We've got probably a 3 to 5 year run, depending on what happens with current interest rates, but we should be able to maintain that kind of rate of return on our core investments for the foreseeable future. And it looks like, market-wise anyway, that things have pretty much stabilized as far as interest rates, not much forecasting of any decrease in rates, which for folks wanting to buy a house and get a mortgage, that's not a great thing. But as far as our investment portfolio, it's a positive, and actually they're looking probably more likely at some interest rate hikes, which will create some opportunities for us as well. Projected annual investment income at this point for 2026, we're looking at probably about 14 million where we'll be for 26, which is roughly a couple million over what we had budgeted beginning of the year. And a lot of that is because of that interest rate stabilization at that 4% rate. And again, that's what I would see as our expectation going forward is in that $14 to $15 million annual income range for the next really 3 to 5 years. That's kind of where things stand now. Any questions? Tax collections are hot and heavy at the moment, coming in. We're about midway through that process. Was delayed, deferred a bit because of the new tax legislation that came on board. Waiting for auditors to make those calculations and get those bills in, but you know, so those that due date's August 12th. So get your taxes paid if you haven't already done that.
What's our percentage of people that actually pay their taxes each assessment period?
As far as on time, I mean, 100% as far as eventually. We have, but we are typically around 95% that pay by the due date. Then there are roughly another 2 to 3% that pay after the due date, but within the next month or two. You know, they incur a delinquency charge penalty for doing that, but which not a small penalty, 10% if they go out past a week past the due date. And then that other 3% by various means of collection strategies there. We send out a third billing in September, October time period, and then we also look at, we did this past year, selling tax lien certificates to collect a good amount of the rest, and then payment plans and other things for the remainder.
Do we know how that compares to other counties?
Considerably lower than most every other county in the
Lower
state.
delinquency, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
where I was going.
Yes,
It
yes.
was,
And-
yeah, the 95%, I knew we were up close to, obviously, government wins 100% of the time.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
by the end of the tax year, we're at around 97-98% collection at that point. Like I said, the other 2-3% that remains delinquent into the next year is then collected.
But it's just kind of cool to represent, you know, property owners that 95 to 98% of their folks pay on time the correct amount and are, I'm not going to say happy to do it, but they do it.
Sure.
Because they know it's their civic duty to do it. So.
I'm not, yeah. Some of that
And
is
they might-
probably correct.
And they might talk to
Some-
the prosecutor.
That's right. But again, I mean, that is you know, it's an important factor. Collection is important. You know, that everyone has that responsibility, and if we didn't collect that, then it places the burden on, an increased burden on those that do pay. So important that we follow through on those collection.
Well, since we're
methods.
talking about delinquency, when do you give a notice that somebody has not paid their bill in writing to them?
It depends on the magnitude. For some smaller, you know, typical accounts, they won't necessarily get a notification that they are delinquent until they get their next bill. So if they're delinquent with their first half payment, they'll see that delinquent tax on their next billing. And that happens, that we have folks that for one reason or another don't receive their tax bill, and as a result, you know, forget that they had have taxes due and don't see that, but we don't automatically generate letters saying, hey, you're late, you owe this. The difference there is if they are delinquent after the second half, one, so the collection that we're engaged in now, we do a supplemental billing. And usually that's about 3,000 or so taxpayers that get that billing, and at that time, they would see that they've got a delinquency.
So I'm curious, I mean, I think one of the confusing parts for some of the taxpayers is the fact that this billing is mid-month. In other words, it doesn't come at the end of the month, it comes at an odd timing.
Sure.
And the only reason why you know when you're supposed to do it is because you send them a bill, and it includes the timing of it. But what dictates that timing, and, I mean, I would think that it would be better in terms of people knowing what to do if it came at the end of the month, but it doesn't do that. Just for the public, can you explain why? Now, in the Hamilton County's bill comes out earlier than yours. I'm assuming that there's some reasoning for this?
At a basic level, the Ohio Tax Commissioner dictates the timing of billings and deadlines for all the counties, and they stagger that in certain respects. They're
So they
groups of counties.
determine which county goes at what time?
Yes, and so that's set, and then there is an opportunity to extend that deadline as we did this year, and most every county did extend that
Because
deadline.
they were recalculating against the homestead.
We do, I mean, in Warren County, historically, we have set the deadline consistently as the last Wednesday of February, and last Wednesday of July as the due date for tax collection.
And what's the penalty? I mean, it's a really steep penalty, as you mentioned.
It is.
And does it, because charging somebody an additional 10% of their property tax because they miss one day, is that 10% apply after the miss
It's
of one day?
5% within the first week after the due date, and then it goes, and then that doubles if they pay after that first week. So if they
Yes,
pay
and
after
that's
the
why
first
I'm
week.
wondering whether or not it would behoove us, because it's really a steep tax, additional tax, 10% after 1 week. And that's why I'm asking about notifying people, you know, if they don't get in, I realize maybe this is difficult, but you know right away whether somebody did not get you something on the date of its due date. It's got to be, I guess the letter's got to be postmarked on the day it's due.
That's correct. So
It
their
doesn't have to be
payment.
received by you, but it has to be postmarked.
That's right. So yes, postmark is what we go by. U.S. postmarks, not a company postage meter. It needs to be from a U.S. Postal Office that puts that on there. But of course, there are additional means to pay, coming in person or paying electronically, where you would be more assured of your payment being on time, which we certainly encourage. And we have seen a considerable uptick in that with switching to the new online platform that we have out there. So to your point, as far as notification, all that stuff, I would also add that we are by statute permitted to forgive the penalty that is assessed. So if somebody does pay for one reason or another, a day late or whatever, as long as that they're not habitually doing that, and then, you know, which of course we can tell, if they haven't had that, you know, within the previous 3 years, we'll remit those penalties, and do quite often. We probably process, I want to say, easily 500 to 750 remittance requests for penalties every year. And I'd say 90% of those are granted, and you know, the other 10% are denied, usually because they've had a history of late payment.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Anything else from that perspective? I think in October I'll be back for the next quarter's report. Likely we'll bring along our investment advisor to that one, which is, I'd like to make our practice of doing that kind of at least once a year to bring that in.
Great. Thank you so much. Next next we have Prosecutor David Fornshell and Sheriff Barry Riley to provide an update on the Child Advocacy Center. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Do I need to use this, or am
I
I?
think so, because it's not the other mic's not working.
All right. So I'm here this morning to provide you an update. I want to do just kind of an operational update on the CAC as well as financial update on the CAC. It's been a couple of years now, I think, since we appeared before you. And so I wanted to kind of, it's surprising that it was that long ago, but I wanted to just give you a brief update. Our last year, 2024 was our last calendar year that we spent where Dayton Children's was our fiscal agent. During that calendar year, our CAC served 457 children in one capacity or another. That includes providing mental health services to 61 children. Looking forward now to this year, 2026, January 1 through June 30, so halfway through the year, we have served 275 children, which is a 550 pace, and then we've provided mental health services to 71 children, which is 144 count pace. So obviously we can't predict for sure what the second half of 2026 holds, but right now we are at an increase on pace for a 20% increase in the number of children that we've served, as well as a 136% increase in the mental health services provided to children. So the short version from an operational standpoint is that we have our new director, Erica Burrell, who you know came from our office as the director of Victim Witness Services. She's now the director of the CAC. She's hit the ground running. She's been on the job for 2 to 3 months now, and I think our CAC is doing an outstanding job. One other thing I would share, and I was looking frantically on it because I should have tried to get this information earlier so that I was prepared to give it to you today. But if I can find it, I will. I'll send it out. One of the interesting things, just in terms of these are the numbers behind what we're doing right now, but one of the things that's interesting is we'll send surveys out to the families who have children that are seen at the CAC and ask them various questions. You know, did you feel like your concerns were addressed? Did you feel like the CAC was a safe place? And our survey ratings are consistently between 95 and 100%. If we have a 95% rating, we're always wondering what was the issue. And so I think that's a testament to the environment that we've created over the last almost 20 years with our CAC. I think it's a quasi-governmental entity, and I think you would be hard-pressed to find any other quasi-governmental entity or governmental entity that gets that type of satisfaction from the people, the consumers that use their services. I doubt Randy does when he's asking for tax payments every month. That's no disrespect to Randy, but nonetheless, it's just it's good for us because it shows us that the people that we're trying to serve, the families and the children who've been victims of child physical and sexual abuse, really think we're doing an outstanding job in serving them. Now, in terms of the finances, I want to move forward to that. Before I get into the specific financing discussion, I also want to just talk about kind of what it looked like prior to the existence of the CAC in Warren County. So if you go back 20 years, if you had a report of a physical or sexual abuse case, a children's services worker or a law enforcement officer, that person would conduct all of their own interviews. And it led to a lot of different issues, which is why you had the advent of child advocacy centers around the country being considered to be the best practices. Because if you have that person when they get to court, you have to interview a child significantly differently than you do an adult. And so a lot of times you have these children's services workers. A lot of them, the caseworkers, they're green. That's a field, as you all know. There tends to be a lot of transition with respect to that particular field. And so when you have the children's services workers and the deputies who have not necessarily been trained in forensic interviewing, it created a lot of issues when it came time to have those cases in front of the court, either for abuse, neglect, and dependency cases, or whether there was a criminal case. So the idea behind CACs was you take this burden of interviewing the child off of every single children's services worker and every single deputy and police officer and detective, and you put it on trained forensic interviewers who are up to date with all the latest techniques. They specialize in this, and we don't have to worry about the cost of going out and training all of the deputies and all of the police officers and all of the children's services workers. We're going to have 2 or 3 individuals who are at our CAC who are going to handle all of these for the county. So in addition to getting a much higher quality of interview for court purposes, because it's being done by a forensically trained interview, you also take a financial burden off of those law enforcement agencies and off of the children's services agencies, and you put it on, it transfers that obligation to the CAC. But that's a good thing. We want the highest quality interview that we get. So when we're talking about CAC finances, we are truly talking about something that is related to a core governmental function of the county. It's not an exaggeration to say that our office, the Warren County Prosecutor's Office, the Warren County Sheriff's Office, and every law enforcement agency in the county, we could not operate the way that we do today. And I'm very proud of how we handle our response to child abuse, whether it's physical or sexual abuse. But quite simply, we could not handle it the way we do today at the quality that we do if we did not have our CAC. Now, that's the kind of the background. In terms of the actual numbers, the total cost to operate the CAC, if we're looking at our 2027 budget, and I'm going to say our because I'm the current chair of the steering committee for the CAC. Our projected expenses are $415,000. Most of that is for basic operational expenses like salary, equipment, licenses, your PERS retirement, unemployment, workers' comp, all those types of things. And then we're currently in negotiations for the mental health component side of it. That could be up to $100,000. I don't know it's going to come in at that. But that's essentially what the CAC's budget looks like going into 2027. That's what we budget. Now, in terms of grant funding, if you look at how we typically fund the CAC, there are 3 major grants that we use to fund the CAC. VOCA grant, which is the Victim of Crime Act, that is a federal grant. It varies up and down because the funding for VOCA comes from federal white-collar forfeitures, which is a weird way to fund all of these crime programs around the country. But that's how VOCA is administered. So it goes from the feds, that's where the money comes from, it goes through the Attorney General's office, and then gets doled out to the different county agencies. And we're competing for VOCA dollars alongside organizations like Safe on Main, for example. I think Safe on Main probably gets 4 times the amount of VOCA funding that we do as a county agency. But it's a portion of that. I think VOCA funding is probably $80,000 a year. We also have Title 20 money. That is for prevention. You cannot use VOCA for prevention efforts, and so we get funds for prevention efforts for the CAC, the stewards training, the mandatory reporter training, things like that. And then lastly, we also get grant funding through ONCAC, which is the Ohio Network of Child Advocacy Centers. That funding comes directly from the state of Ohio. It goes through ONCAC, and then ONCAC distributes that to the member organizations. So collectively, I would call those the big 3. Those are the big 3 grants. And the big 3 grants provide $225,000 of that $415,000. So what that leaves is, from an operational standpoint, I'm going to separate the mental health side out for just a second because that's a very important aspect of the CAC. Is it a core function to be able to fund that? If push came to shove and I had to say, well, this is where we have to cut our budget, mental health services would probably be the first thing that would have to go. But I also don't think it's a good idea to cut that service that we provide because we're just going to pay it down the line. Every statistic that we've seen, every survey that's ever been done will tell us that if you have a child that's been a victim of sexual abuse or physical abuse, their chance for abusing later on becomes higher. So we're going to deal with them in the criminal justice system. We're going to deal with them in the mental health system. We're going to deal with them in the substance abuse system. So if we're not getting to them early and providing the mental health services at the time, at or near the time where they are being victimized, we're going to more than pay for that down the line. So I'm not suggesting that's not important. It is. But in terms of just the core forensic interviewing type functions of the CAC, the grant funding provides all but about $190,000 worth of that money. So how do we plug that hole? How do we plug that hole every year? Well, we're plugging that hole today the exact same way that we did the entire time that we were under the fiscal operation of Dayton Children's Hospital. And that's basically, we go out and we shake the trees and we pass the cap. We try to fundraise through the gala. We apply for every $500 grant here and $5,000 grant there. The commissioners have been generous over the years providing donations, but this has been the model for our CAC and the funding mechanism for our CAC the entire time that this CAC has been in operation. And honestly, if push came to shove, we could continue to operate that way. That could continue to be the way that we try to go out and plug that hole. But I will tell you, in all honesty, it is enormously inefficient for us to do it that way. And that's because you are diverting the time and attention. The people that are doing this are me. It's the sheriff. It is the head of your children's services agency. It's your children's services workers. It's my assistant prosecutors, my victim witness coordinators. It's the CAC staff. We are all the ones that are going out trying to raise $500 checks here, $1,000 checks there, doing all of that fundraising work for, I think, what all of us would agree really is a core governmental function. And so where we are now is, I think, where our predecessors, Sheriff Sims and Rachel Hutzel, when they started this organization almost 20 years ago, they envisioned this always being something that Warren County fully supported. And that's in every realm. And the commissioners have been fantastic. But I think we're at a point now where it makes sense to go ahead and take this to the next level. I think over the past year and a half, we've shown that the CAC has integrated well with county operations from a fiscal standpoint, with the auditor's office, HR standpoint. We've had to hire staff and things like that. And so it's a very minimal. They're not the CAC is not a problem entity. It's a fairly easy entity, I think, from an administrative standpoint for the commissioners to have taken on and the auditor's office to take on as fiscal agent. We're serving more, as I said at the very beginning, we're serving more children than we've ever served before. We're doing a great job. And so what our steering committee is requesting is for really the county commissioners to cover the operational expenses of the CAC, and for us to essentially get in the same budgetary mechanism and cycle and process as all the other county agencies and departments, because we really are serving a core governmental function. What it does is it allows then the CAC staff, our staff, the sheriff's staff, we can focus on what we do best. As somebody that has to run for elective office, obviously, it's a necessity that I go and fundraise, but I still like to think that's not what I do best. I feel like criminal justice, operating the prosecutor's office, handling those kind of cases, that's what my time really should be spent towards. Same with the sheriff, same with the CAC staff, not going out and trying to fund core governmental functions by passing the hat. So it would allow us to divert our attention back to what we really think we should be doing, which is our area of expertise, and that is serving the victim, the child sexual and physical abuse victims in Warren County. Now, the other thing this would allow us to do is we would still continue, the big three, we would still continue to apply for. I mean, those are, we basically know how to do that. Those are fairly simple lifts from the standpoint of filling out that application every year and getting in line for that grant funding. So the idea would be we would continue to try to do what we can with respect to these larger grants to get those funds and offset the expenses that the CAC has, but by essentially submitting this budget through the county commissioners, we're able to say to our CAC employees every year, yes, you're going to have a job, regardless of what this grant is, whether the federal white collar dollars go down or up, you're going to have a job. The funding's there. We don't have to sweat about how much we make at the gala. We don't have to sweat about how much, other types of donations that we get. I would anticipate we'll still probably operate the gala. Those funds can still be utilized. First off, it's a great awareness. It's a great awareness event. Brings great awareness to the CAC and the community understanding what it is that our organization does. But it can still be used to the Friends of the CAC, which is through the Warren County Foundation. Those funds can still be utilized for extra things that we have, whether that's the therapy, offsetting the cost of therapy for some of these. It's kind of the middle that ends up, you have to help the middle out usually. Some people have insurance that covers the therapy. Sometimes we have Medicaid that covers the therapy, but it's the people in the middle that sometimes get hit. And so we want to be able to if you're a child victim of sexual abuse, that we can get therapy to you without any cost to you, because God knows that we're probably not getting restitution from the defendant in those particular cases. So I still think that there will be a use for the gala and to pay for extra things. But by doing this, I think the real benefit, it really does recognize that this is a core governmental function, and it frees up the CAC staff and the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's office and children's services to do what we do best, which is to focus on how we respond to child abuse in Warren County. So that is the pitch that I'm making today. That's the pitch that the sheriff is joining me in, and the entire steering committee unanimously. And we've got our steering committee, it's not just because of the people, but I mean, we've got a really good steering committee. We've got Megan Manuel, who is on our steering committee, who, as you know, is head of DD in our county, the sheriff, myself, the head of the Mental Health and Recovery Board, which also happens to be my wife. And help me out. Jeff Mitchell is chief of police. So this is what I'm presenting to you today is unanimous. It's a unanimous request from our steering committee. So that is the pitch, and I'm happy to either answer questions or turn the mic over to our sheriff, whichever you would prefer. Do you want to say anything?
I told you I'm here for asset protection, so whatever you need, sir.
Any questions?
So you're telling us that you're going to come forward at budget time with a request?
Well, I think the budget has already been submitted, if I'm not mistaken. The tax budget has been submitted. And so that budget will look like what I just described to you.
Okay.
And so
we'll
then
deliberate this at our tax time.
Yeah.
Our budget time.
Well, I understand that. What I'm asking today is for you. I mean, I understand you're deliberating the amount, and that's fine. But what I would like is a commitment from this board to put that, I guess, to include this in that process, to fully include this in that process, if that makes sense.
You're talking about including in our budget process?
Yes. To treat it like you would any other county agency or department.
I mean, from my standpoint, I hate to say it does make sense, but as you presented your case, and this might be one of the first times you actually presented a case before us, I'm just glad we're not opposing counsel to you. You laid out a very concise and understandable rationale for this, and as one of the folks receiving your as you call it, pitch, it's 100% true. I was here when we started the CAC, and it was Rachel's idea at the time. And Bruce, if I remember correctly, it was not necessarily unanimous amongst the Board of Commissioners of was that a good idea or not. And there was potentially a commissioner that was very vocal against anything like this. And perhaps even though we all kind of recognized that, well, doesn't law enforcement already do this? That was the big pushback even I had at the time. How are you already doing it? Sheriff's Department or local police jurisdictions, they already do this. And then it was, no, we want to try it this way. They're not trained. It's better for the kids. And as a matter of fact, just so you don't try to, blow up our entire idea in public, how about you only contribute a little bit and we'll go fundraise the rest.
Right.
And that's literally the way this started, which actually kind of surprised me even back then, that after a year or two, kind of the trial balloon of, wait a second, this thing's working,
Right.
They're professionally trained, they're vetting out the kids that really do have the problems, you know, they're getting convictions out of people that have perpetrated these crimes against our kids in the county. I was actually surprised it didn't fall under just a core department of government. And from a financial perspective, you're not talking about really changing a lot of the numbers. You're talking about predictability, that it's 415,000 and you still anticipate 225,000 of grant money being available. So the delta's really like 80 grand or something?
Well,
it could be more or less.
yeah, well, I mean, that didn't include the mental health component, so I don't want to short sell that aspect of it, because I think that's important. We have 2 therapists that are on site at the CAC, which is great.
I mean, could you even be a certified child advocacy center without the mental health services?
You can't. Well, there's a difference, Commissioner Jones. The difference is, yes, you can. The question is who pays for it. And so we would still have mental health is still on the board. Mental health is still a core partner, and we're still making the referral. But just like medical, you have to have a medical component. Whether that medical provider charges or does not charge is not necessarily what dictates whether or not you are an accredited child advocacy center. So, no, you don't have to have mental health therapists on site at the CAC, paid for by the CAC, in order to be an accredited.
So we could just refer them to the board and
To
the
what
mental health board.
Well, they don't provide mental health services.
Well, they contract with people who.
They do, and they contribute, and part of the funding, that's also some of, now they do it directly to, that doesn't flow through the CAC. So mental health board every year, the entire time that I've been prosecutor, has contributed some of the funds with respect to that. And so, you know, they do contribute some of that. All of it, no. I mean, there's additional expenses. They've got, you know, obviously they're addressing a lot of different issues themselves, but they do contribute some of that. The question is whether we want to try to provide this at no cost to these child sexual abuse victims. So, but yeah, that's a budgetary.
Commissioner Jones brings up a good point. We don't
Yeah.
want to replicate services.
Yeah, we're not
There's already a
replicating.
mechanism
Yeah,
in
we're
place.
not.
And those are the things that obviously from our standpoint, we would have to
Right.
vet to make sure that, well, wait a second, there's already a way, there's already a funding source to do it this, you know, why are we duplicating
Right.
that? Which is, you know, what's one component of this.
Yeah,
Right.
and I wasn't really concerned about duplication, though
Yep.
I mean, we don't want duplication.
Right.
Where I always come from this is, you know, I expect law enforcement and the prosecutor's office to do their job. And
Right.
I get that this model allows you to get better prosecutions,
Right.
which is a good thing.
Right.
What my primary concern is, and where the Child Advocacy Center movement came from, was in not re-victimizing
Correct.
the child
Correct.
during your interview process and your prosecution process. And so, you know, from the standpoint of, you know, not having what is not only a core component of the model, but is the reason that child advocates have borne this, you know, years ago, and where the
Right.
research is to not have the victim be the center of it and not providing the services seems to be unwise, as you
Right.
point out.
Right.
But also, I would say it diverts back to, you all should be doing the investigations and the interviews and the prosecution. That's what you get paid to do. And so there's really then no, you know, purpose for a child advocacy center. So I would hate to see that we deviate from the research that tells us
Right.
that the child should not be re-victimized,
Right.
because that is what creates long-term societal
Right.
challenges.
Right, right. And Commissioner Young, I think, just going back to one point that you made, which was at the outset of this, when you hear I've always felt that the term child advocacy center it started that way, and it is reflected in the revised code that way, and in other, nationwide, that's how it's referred to. I don't think it necessarily fully or accurately reflects what the organization does. And so when this organization was started almost 20 years ago, I can understand where somebody might think, well, this is just another government program that does this, that, or the other, and we probably already have something that does that. And it did take some time, and I think the compromise at that point in time was, look, if you can help us to some degree, we'll go out and try to make the case to the community that this is something that's needed. And clearly by our numbers, if you go back even 15 years, I mean, we were seeing it was in the 100 range, between 100 and 200 kids a year, and now we're on pace to see 550 kids. That's not because child abuse has skyrocketed in Warren County. That's just because we are now doing a better job of utilizing what is basically everybody agrees is a best practice to doing so. And so I
that's
think
an important point. So it's not the rate of abuse on kids has skyrocketed in this county. You're just saying that law enforcement has become more comfortable with this process.
For sure.
And so all of the jurisdictions inside of the county are now utilizing this
Correct.
service as opposed to doing it themselves.
Yeah, and that was in the first, I would say, 10 years of this, that was the first, that was a challenge. I think that even the sheriff would admit to you that, go ahead.
Yeah, I will just say very simply, when I prioritize my daily list, it's...
Barry, can we have you use the
Absolutely.
microphone, please? Thanks.
I will say when I prioritize my work list, here's my priority list: victims, staff, then everybody else. And when I met with the people who count, the staff that counts, my number 2 priority, they said that this is the best that the CAC has been functioning in their time here. And that means something to me. The people boots on the ground, working with these children. We were at an all-time high last year in 2025 for internet crimes against children search warrants, and every bit of that is a conduit to what they are faced with in the CAC. And right now we're in a 5-day stretch where we're doing 4 search warrants in this county for internet crimes against children. So to say, when the people who matter say that this is working better now than it ever has been, I'm taking note.
Other questions?
No, I mean, just from my standpoint, again, you're asking for some predictability, which
Correct.
I think is reasonable, that we as a board did decide that it was okay to bring this organization under our really control, that county employees and things like that it does become a question of, is it predictable and is this a core function of government? And from my standpoint, yes.
I think when I came in 15 years ago, this isn't something new. I mean, this was, when I talked to Sheriff Sims at the time, this was always his vision. And it wasn't only his vision, but it was always his vision. Like, this is how this thing should be structured. How we get there, it may take some time. Maybe we're still proving our cases to how valuable this is to the organization, to the county as a whole. But I think, we've had this separation, and even in the year and a half of the separation, we're demonstrating that we know what we're doing. We know how to operate our CAC better than anyone, because we know our county better than anyone. And that's where we are. And this just, again, like you said, it gives us some budgetary predictability. We're getting ready to do for our reaccreditation, which comes up in October. We're getting ready to do our strategic planning committee. And I intentionally didn't fill out the survey because
We just approved the contract for that.
for that, yeah. So I didn't fill out the survey for the topics of that, because every single person on the steering committee is going to put as the number 1 topic to be discussed at the strategic planning, meeting, funding. Like, that is going to be our number one challenge that we are going to have, or what do they say, opportunity, however the corporate types talk when they're doing the strategic planning meetings. But nonetheless, that's our huge issue. And so if we can move away from that, obviously we have to be budget concerned and wise and conscious and understand that these are tax dollars, and it doesn't mean that suddenly the budget's going to increase. I think we're fine in terms of our staffing and our equipment and our facilities. We may be getting a little bit tight on our facilities, and I think we're part of potentially the master plan when the new Children's Services facility and that building is built. But really, I don't anticipate from a staffing standpoint us needing a tremendously, additional amount of staffing. I think there's 5 employees now, 5 or 6 employees of the CAC. So I think that's going to stay fairly constant. But to be able to have that type of certainty, to not have to go out and do all that fundraising just to keep the doors open, gives us the ability to really focus on what we do best. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Susan Walther to talk about our wrap-up on the ARPA.
Good morning. Okay, so I'm just here before you today because I wanted to kind of give you guys an update about ARPA funding.
You need to use the microphone.
You guys told the people first time. One person forgot. I just wanted to kind of start a conversation regarding what remains of ARPA funding that we received in 2021. In 2021, we received $45 million of ARPA funding, federal dollars. At this point, it all has to be expended by the end of this year. We have expended about 40 million of it and have about $4.3 million left to expend by December 2026. We have some money already obligated, and we have some funds that have not been obligated yet. And any remaining funds can only be obligated to projects that we've already worked with before 2026. So a lot of the funds that we already used were used to build things in the parks, water softening plants, broadband, technology, water mains. We gave money to fairgrounds, services for family and children, and we offset the general fund budget for salaries and things like that. We have $660,000 left to obligate this year that has not been accounted for how we're going to use it. And we have to decide how we're going to do that. And that doesn't have to be today that we decide it, but I kind of just wanted to start introducing the topic so we have conversations about it. I sent out with a summary to you all some of the options, but I'll also follow up with you guys because, again, the decision doesn't have to be made today. But with the $600,000 that we have remaining, we can use it for things like the sheriff's salary to offset some of that for general fund.
In the jail, correct?
In the jail, right. Any kind of core services like United Way, because we've done that before. We've done the food pantries before. We can give money to the Visitors Bureau, and we've already given them $2 million in the last few years of that ARPA funding. We gave money to the tennis tournament, $3 million. We can give additional money to that. And then for the project in Middletown, the ICE multi-sport venue, we've given about $3.6 million to that, and we can give additional money to that. Those are projects that have been ongoing that more money can be obligated to. We cannot create a new project. There's a couple projects that we still have money obligated to spend. We have about $150,000 obligated to Middletown Event Center, and then some funds to go to the sheriff's jail salaries, which we still are going to use this year. That's where I come to Alter Fiber, who came and talked to you all in May of this year, because we still have $3.2 million of their contract, which was a little over $4 million left to spend. The likelihood of that being spent this year is probably not likely, so we would lose those funds, going back to the federal government.
So what's Alta Fiber gonna do if they had a contract and the service is not gonna get done then?
Well, they came here in May, and they wanted additional money for us to pay up front. They wanted us to give them the rest of the money, $3.2 million, and they were going to just charge us more per door with a guarantee that they would finish the original contract that we had on their own dollars. I think you all, I was not there that day, but I think you all sent them out and asked them to create some documents or give you guys some facts that showed that there was like a third-party delays that have created the situation where they were not able to fulfill this contract and that the doors have created more of expense to them. At this point, they have not done that. There's been a lot of communication to them trying to get this nailed down. We do now have a meeting, we being Martin, myself, and Adam, tomorrow to follow up with them again to try to get some solutions and maybe suggest some solutions. But to kind of give you
Well,
just,
they're in breach of contract, basically, and so, I mean, I think they had 36 months to complete this. So it's like, you know, what I don't want to do is jeopardize the investment that our taxpayers have paid
right,
to, you know, to send it to some other county. And so it feels to me like if this doesn't get wrapped up, if there isn't a path forward with them in the next 2 weeks or so, then we have to reappropriate those dollars so that they get spent in the county. And I mean, which I would think we would have grounds to do that. I will defer to the prosecutor on that because they have not met the time frame in their contract.
Yeah, I think the point where we're at is, so because the time frame ends at the end of this year, contract is written such that they would have through December to complete the scope. They're nowhere near completing the scope. I don't know how their position could be that they will complete it in the next 5 months or less, 4 months, because they're only maybe a third of the way in. When I discussed with them and their lawyer about restructuring the contract, which those discussions began months ago, it was, is there even a legal path to do that? The legal path was, if there have been additional costs or unexpected and delays, then we can restructure this.
Which they said it was getting the approvals to
Right.
go on the polls
Right.
that the utility companies had
But
control
in the
over.
last week, they've said we can't give you documentation to explain additional costs. So,
Well, it sounds like then those resources are,
yeah, so we need to, I mean, one real option is to find a way out of that contract, whether it's a mutual termination, whether it's a notice of termination. But we need to have some frank discussion with them tomorrow. But I think, you know, we do need to ask the board to think about this a lot in the next 7 days.
Yeah.
So we can get some clear direction. I can send you all an attorney opinion that just focuses on the termination clause
yes.
and give you feedback from our conversation tomorrow, but I don't know how we couldn't, the honest conversation would have to be, how do we wind this down? Because you're not going to be able to complete, but if they can continue to work throughout this year and provide some amount of
Yeah,
additional
fine.
availability of broadband, you know, that's great, but they're not gonna meet the goal. And I don't know how their position could be, we overpromised and underdelivered and didn't complete the units. This contract is structured that we pay per availability of broadband per door. And,
Thank God it was.
well, and
structured
Adam,
that
if I
way.
can add some perspective to it, in 2025, they only billed us $300,000, and this year they've only billed us $14,000. So they're nowhere near even dipping into this amount of money that can be reallocated even to salaries to offset general fund
Yeah,
costs.
the funny thing is, because I spoke to Spectrum, because we awarded this to them because they promised the moon.
Altifiber.
And
Altifiber,
Altifiber
yeah.
did. And Spectrum was saying all the things they were saying, and I think there was even a discussion by the board at that time. The fiber companies are gonna be doing this anyway. There was billions of dollars from the federal government, and my discussion with the top folks at Spectrum recently were, they already did it in Warren County without receiving this contract.
Right.
And so I know the board's concern at the time was we had only one option in certain areas, and that it was limited high-speed internet in certain areas. And my understanding is that has dramatically improved, not even necessarily as a result of Altifiber,
Right.
but because of other providers, specifically Spectrum. And I don't know if anybody else has, but it's just Spectrum represented to me. We already did in Warren County. We built it out. There is high-speed fiber everywhere now. We've done that over the last several years, which from our standpoint is great. So I like Commissioner Jones's thought of reallocating this somewhere else. So does it have to be, even if they won't terminate the contract or do anything like that, if it's 12/31, they've had to spend the money, isn't this just a journal entry from our standpoint on 12/31? We can literally move the money if it's encumbered to go into
We
this
have to have it
multi-fiber?
spent by the end of the year, though.
Well, we take it.
We
if-
could,
if
we could
do it from
agree to,
salaries.
we could agree to support it through general funds, perhaps, just as the different funding mechanism, and say, okay, if you meet the goal, we'll pay you, but we'll pay it out of general funds, we're not gonna pay it out of ARPA dollars, and we reappropriate the ARPA dollars.
I do have a comment on that. My concern is that I don't know if there's any statute that allows you just to give money to a company like Alta Fiber to go out and engage in its private business providing high-speed internet. This was specific
Yeah.
to the federal act for COVID relief, so people could do telehealth,
Yeah.
remote work, remote education, and the federal government gave us the ability to spend dollars on this purpose expressly, but with a deadline. So I don't know that you
Well,
can
I think
back
what
it.
you're hearing is a desire to kind of figure out, like, we don't wanna leave money on the table. We wanna figure out how if there's a way for us to, I mean, maybe tomorrow, when you meet with them, there'll be some mutual agreement on how to proceed. And if they have if they have things that they haven't billed yet, by all means, they need to bill it so we can pay them. But I don't wanna leave resources on the table.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's almost an accounting thing on some of this. If we can reimburse for salaries specifically to the jail,
Yes.
what is that number?
Yeah.
And we do that 12/30.
I think this has, how much was the number? Was it
It's
3
literally
million?
on 12/30.
It was 3 million,
Okay, well, I mean, we can spend 3 million like that.
right?
I mean, you're literally just journaling it over, hey, it's the same day this contract terminates, we're just making a journal entry to move the money over to our general fund to
Would that be
reimburse
possible,
ourselves.
We'd
Lisa?
for
have
that.
to
We'll do
pass a
that.
resolution probably.
But is that the spending, does that meet the spending requirement?
It would, if you, so with money that has been, you can de-obligate funds from a contract or a project that's not working out or is not, the
Well,
scope is
clearly
changing.
this isn't working out.
Right, and then you can
You
use
already know
those,
that.
you can use that money for a purpose that's already been obligated. So we've already obligated funds for corrections officer salaries, and so you could fund that additionally.
So we have
if this
660
project's working out.
plus how much we think?
Well, we have we have about 3.2 million left, with obviously if there's change, but with Ultra
So
Fiber.
they'll probably bill us for something between, so it's $3.6 million that we have to, and you're saying there's 3 million in jail salaries, there's headroom.
Yeah,
So
we
we
could
still
cover it.
have to talk about 660-ish.
Would you be able to use all of it, Lisa? She could use it all.
She can use, and so
You could.
we can actually do it at the end of the year
Well,
and have it.
Is that too
It
tight?
would have to happen probably by the end of November, but yeah.
All right, well then let's make sure that happens.
Yeah, I mean, so do we want, and again, my preference is the vast majority of that money going basically to us.
Right.
Because we've already spent money and that's a direct benefit to taxpayers. Could, one or two of those projects that you talked about, stand a couple $100,000 of something, potentially.
I could provide more detail to you all about that, so you guys have a little more information.
It could give us headroom to think about, I'm making this up on the fly here, but it provides some headroom to say, okay, here's how for the next 3 years with our general revenues then, we anticipate some pathway with things like the Child Advocacy Center, for example, or, if we want to provide some predictability for a period of time. I mean, so that's not that we can talk about that at our regular budget conversations, but if we wanted to provide some predictability for some things around there, we could do that and not be hamstrung by having to be out the door by the end of the year.
Well, we have asked and provided options to Ultra Fiber, and they're just not
Well,
coming
that-
back
I
with
mean,
anything.
I
So
understand.
we are kind of like,
We've kind of crossed the Rubicon
past that.
there. You guys are gonna
Perfect.
have that conversation and figure out how to get it
Yeah,
done.
they can mutually terminate or go ahead and bill us for who you complete, and at year end, we're just yanking the money.
okay, I appreciate that direction. That's what we're looking for. And so I'll create a better document as far as what projects can still have funding go towards it, so you all can kind of make those choices and we can come back around and have the conversation again. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Crystal, is there anything to add on here? Martin, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay, anything else to come before the board today?
I'll make one comment before we leave. Obviously, our fair just concluded,
Yep.
and you've all asked for and asked me to be the point person to get this. I've asked the fair board. They've had a new election. We know who the new board members are. I don't know whether they're going to choose new officers, but I've asked for a full financial report from them that I can present next week.
Yeah, that's great. Tom and I, well, Tom spent a lot of time at the fair, but Tom and I spent last Wednesday,
I think it was
Thursday?
Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah, we spent Wednesday and got a nice tour. I will say this, the volunteers, for the Agricultural Society has done a lot of work on the fairgrounds. It's looking the best that I've seen it in a long time. And I don't know what this means because it's the first, I think, in my political lifetime here in Warren County. It was not the hottest week of the year. It was actually really mild weather, and so hopefully that resulted in pretty high attendance for them because it was beautiful. the
They
day
set a
we were
record
there.
on Wednesday.
Yeah,
They had record attendance Wednesday. I know that David had a tour on Saturday,
excellent.
and they have done a lot of work. They've had a lot of volunteers come out. They really have done, well, it's been a tremendous effort on their part, but I want to give a full financial report next week. I've told them that, and they need to collect all their data. And of course, they were getting a lot of money in during this fair, which is the big thing for them. So hopefully, they'll have all this. I've asked them to have it to me so that we can make a presentation and share with you the numbers, the people who participated in it, what they've done, and what their financial status is at this time.
Yeah, I mean, my impression was much like yours. It's obviously a long history there, that I do appreciate the volunteers. They said there was like 2,000 volunteer hours.
You can tell just
And
by
you
looking
could
at
tell.
it.
Power washing and painting and things like that. So it was impressive that there is more community buy-in to that facility. I had a very candid conversation with the board president and didn't hold back on what I believe have been problems and what I see as problems now, and was a very reasonable discussion. So,
You still have to, it still has to be sustainable. We still have to figure out the path forward. There's no question.
Correct.
And it's fair to say, after Tom left us, Chris Lutmer and I had a similar conversation, and it was a very reasonable conversation. So eager to see, Tom, what they bring forward.
And Chris Lutmer, by the way, was overwhelmingly reelected. I mean, he had, out of 300 and some votes, he had like 240. It's an unbelievably large vote for him. So I'm expecting that he'll be the president of the Agricultural Society Board again. I don't know that for certain, but I've asked them to give me a full financial report so we can report next week.
Excellent. Anything else to come before the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, we have